Good evening, good evening. This is Venus with No Mess. Welcome to my channel, guys. Today we're going to watch the trial of Mark Wright. He's the one that unalived his nephew and his niece. We're going to watch that trial and we're going to see how much time he's going to get in jail. I'll give you a little feedback. Mark was the uncle. He was the one that unalived his niece and nephew. The body was found buried in the family backyard in 2018. And the prosecutor is upset, and they argue that no one in the household is accepting responsibility for the kid's death. But they said Mark was the one that unalived them, what we're going to see. And it's so sad because the family is trying to cover this up. So guys, sit back and let's watch this trial and see what happened. Hold on a second.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, I'd like to commend Mr. Sincox and Ms. Riles. This is about the longest, I believe the longest sentencing hearing I've ever been a part of. There's a lot of people here for the defendant, which I found noteworthy in that there's no one here in kind for the victims. And there's a good reason for that, Your Honor, because the victims had nobody. The people who were supposed to protect them, who were supposed to nourish and feed and care for them, have now either charged or have either pled to their murder or are awaiting trial for killing them. As we went over previously, we've got a number of charges here. Count one is murder in the second degree. Our victim is Mary Frances Crocker, who was age 13 at the time of her death. Our maximum sentence there is 10 to 30. Count four is first degree cruelty. Same victim, 5 to 20. Cruelty in the second degree, which we discussed previously, merges with count one. Count six and count seven are both concealing the death of another, one for Elwyn John Crocker Jr., commonly called JR. He was 14 years old at the time of his death. And then the final count, false imprisonment. That gives us a sentencing range of 10 to 80 years. And we are requesting the full 80. It is appropriate in this case. I think what you're going to see is that the defense has mischaracterized the involvement of Mr. Wright in this event. He was not a passive observer. He was an active participant. And I would say to something that came to mind, this memo and the presentation on sentencing, there's that section in there that talks about how he's already been punished because he sent his sister and his mother to prison, or at least his actions caused them to go to prison. What was noticeably absent in that memo, or what was noticeably absent in that presentation, was any consideration, any remorse for the kids. There's nothing in there accepting responsibility. Judge, these children are dead. It breaks my heart. I can't stand it. I live with it every day. There's nothing like that. It's, the two people in my family that starved and tortured them to death. Well, I love them, and now they'll never walk free again. And that's my punishment already. This was the best picture we had for these two. EJ or JR and Mary. JR was killed November 1st, 2016. There's some question about Mary's. We're fairly certain it's the 28th, may have bled over into the 29th. But almost 2 years to the day after her big brother was killed. Our killers, Elwyn John Crocker Sr., EJ, he's the biological father of the victims, brother-in-law to Mr. Wright. Mr. Wright's sister, Kim Crocker, formerly Kim Wright, Candace Crocker. Mother is Kim, that's her there on the bottom right. And then Kim's boyfriend, Roy Prater, who we've been hearing about, along with Mark Anthony Wright. So this case began on law enforcement's end on December 20th, 2018. The Sheriff's Department received a tip about Mary Crocker being missing, feared dead, and it was determined that Mr. Wright was the source of that information. According to Mr. Wright, and I know you've heard this already, EJ and Candace were in an argument, and they mentioned in front of him, because they assumed he would not care, that Mary Crocker was dead. Even with this information, Mr. Wright, the fun uncle, the protector, described Mary as a stupid girl who didn't do what she was told. JR was stupid too. Law enforcement, after investigating, of course, discovered that Mary and JR were dead, and we would ultimately find that they had effectively been tortured to death. These 5 individuals are the parties responsible. Elwyn actually led law enforcement to the children's graves. They were buried in, we've been referring to it as Kim Wright's yard, but I think the defense sort of acknowledged that was, Mark was paying the bills. That was his house. They were in his backyard. And all 5 of the defendants either currently lived or previously lived at the home with Mary while this was all taking place. I don't know, this is a very dark video. Hopefully you'll be able to see what's taking place, but this is EJ with the Sheriff's Department showing where the children are buried. Wait, so we don't have sound.
You sit there long for a second. You should.
Yeah, we do. Okay. I believe that's the duck pin to the right.
About how far down?
She used a shovel. Shovel muscles.
His roots, did you see?
Oh, no. Yeah, they do. Yeah. You don't let me surprise me, they got my throat, I was too long. I ain't ready for one. I ain't have no flights. No, no.
Right.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You know what?
And, life insurance.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's nothing I can do with it.
Right.
Still paying on it too.
All right.
Yeah, why wouldn't
Yeah, sure. I got plenty.
I don't know if you caught that. EJ is flippantly commenting about the life insurance policy he's got that he's still paying on, but can't cash in because nobody knows that his children are dead. So the graves would be excavated, of course, once they had some daylight. This is where they were, started to say laid to rest, but this is where they were buried. So we've got cement bags down there that were just put down. Looks like water was sprayed over them. Those were on top of the bodies. And then you can see this is Mary, I believe, in a trash bag. Opened it up a little bit, and that's her face. And if you'll notice this orange, scratchy looking sheet, we'll see that again later. So they continue excavating. Same thing. They find JR also in a trash bag. This is the residence on Rosebud Place and the approximate location of the bodies. As I said, JR had been there for over 2 years when they dug them up. Mary had been there just shy of 2 months when they found her. So law enforcement would search the home and interview the occupants. I think something that really struck me as I was reviewing this case was how much they hated these children. And it's really bizarre, as Mr. Simcox mentioned, there's a younger half brother who is EJ's biological child, but is not biologically related to any of the other 4. And he was more or less treated fine. But for some reason, JR and Mary, as an example, less than a year before Mary was killed, Candace and Kim to each other talking about some gift cards that were given, and one of which was supposed to go to Mary. I took Mary's card out before she saw it and gave the gift card to James, that's younger brother. Kim says, I see. Wish it taught Mary, but she refuses to learn. Candace, I know. Kim, don't remind her or ask her, but did she do any of her schoolwork? Candace, yes, she did. She just mentioned it. Kim, was hoping she would get in trouble. Candace, me too. Someone in school must have helped her. Again, they're talking about, at this point, a 12-year-old child. These are her 2 primary caregivers. Same 2. And this gets to the starvation. Candace to Kim. I tried making Mary's food nasty and it didn't work. She said it tasted good and she wanted more. Kim. What did you put in it? Candace to Kim. First bowl, I put rice vinegar. Second, I think she's trying to spell Worcestershire. I suppose her phone didn't have spell check. Kim to Candace. Use mustard and oil, lots of pepper and salt. Candace to Kim. Okay. Again, a child. These are two adults talking about a child. This is the life these children lived. Kim to Candace. So does she like it? Candace, yes. Kim, damn. Candace, yeah, she is just that stubborn. Kim, I hope she explodes with diarrhea at school. Candace, LOL. This is a video I found just particularly creepy. It's Mary outside doing her chores and the two women inside filming and gathering evidence so she can be punished later.
She's going to come back and figure out what it is. And I think she heard noises.
That small figure out there is Mary. They would, of course, also learn that the occupants of the house used starvation as punishment. This is a 13, almost 14-year-old girl. If this was in black and white, where would you think this was from? And if you would, Your Honor, please, directly behind her is the kennel, and there's a sheet over it. If you would just make a mental note of that.
And again, media, these photos are not to be published anywhere at any time.
April 14th, so roughly 6 months before her death, Candace texts CJ, I love you. Mary just spoke up, said she wants something to eat. Kim to Candace, she has been through my cabinets and my pantry. Candace, I don't know. Kim, she admits she has. Candace, please keep it between you, me, and EJ. Kim, she admits to being in y'all's room too. And there's a reason that they didn't want Tony to know about this, which we'll get into momentarily. And just so you know, while this child is starving for calories, there is food in those cupboards that she's trying to break into. Candace to EJ, do not offer Mary something to eat. She was already offered and turned it down. Candace to Kim, you know how you asked me there was any candy in the room that I'm staying in? I just found out that EJ had orange Mentos mints that he had said a good bit is missing. Kim, I knew she was eating something out of there. And I know I keep stopping, but just bear in mind, this is a starving child eating Mentos breath mints for calories. I know, I just didn't know what. Her daddy is going to have to deal strongly with her. And this will be a theme throughout this. Anytime that there's something wrong, an effect from the starvation, The adults all agree it's her fault. She gets too weak to stand. Well, now she won't stand up. She got into the food. Well, she's starving. Everything is because of her. They bear no culpability, and it runs up to the day of their death, to the day of her death. Kim texts Candace, Mary ate sugar out of Tony's cup of sugar for his coffee. When did she do that? She said when her daddy had her stand in the kitchen and turned his back. Kim, she keeps asking for something to eat. Says she asked her daddy and he's supposed to be getting her something and something to eat with. This stealing Tony's sugar is what ultimately leads to the ginger root, as you'll see momentarily. But again, you're talking about a child. I have children, I know. They love candy, they love sweets. I've never seen a child that wasn't starving eat raw sugar. This is desperation. And what is Tony's response? He is angry. She put her dirty hands in my sugar. He knew she was starving. Kim to Candace. Mary keeps asking for her daddy and more food. The children were also physically abused. You've seen this picture. And of course, I don't think we've noted it at the time, but look at the adults. She's starving. They clearly are not. There is food to go around, and they're depriving it from this child. Lashes on her behind. That's actually where there's a note in the interviews that he was not hitting her in the back. He was hitting her on the rear end with that stereo cable. So here's a picture of what her rear end looks like. And then, of course, she's standing next to her little cage. And this is the front. Again, at this point, she is in puberty. She's a teenager. She looks like a late elementary school child, early middle school. Roy Prater describes the abuse, some of the abuse done to Mary, that include beatings with a belt, beatings with an automotive fan belt, beatings with the infamous speaker wire, burning her body with hot water, spraying hot, spicy food seasoning or liquid in her eyes. And then, as Mr. Simcox noted, we did find the stun gun that they were using to stun this child. So the ginger root, and this is an interview from Candace, and I couldn't help but notice in Mr. Simcox's statements that he was happy to rely on Candace's interview when it was helpful, but did not like the parts like this. And Your Honor, I know you can read, but just for the record, I'm gonna read this out for the court reporter. So question, and this is a question to Candace. And you're not sure if Tony did, but he would have been aware that she was being tased. Candace, yeah. I know. I just remember my brother was trying to have no part in disciplining Mary at all. The only part I remember him having of disciplining Mary is he came up with the idea of telling my mom that maybe sticking a ginger root up her behind will teach her a lesson. So let's talk about the ginger root for a moment. What lesson? What lesson would he have been teaching her, Miss Crocker? The lesson that I remember them being upset about, was the fact of her going into the cabinet and taking Tony's stuff that was in the cabinet. It was like coffee stuff that he had, like creamer, and it was mostly the fact of her eating his things, the reason why they were pissed. And he said that because I'm like, what does the ginger root got? What's the deal with that? And he said, if you do that, then it's going to burn. That's not joking. That's not an offhand comment, even though that would be weird. That is, the starving child ate some of my coffee stuff, and this will burn if we stick it in her body. And I think I asked again, what is ginger root and what is it for? This is Roy Prater. And Kim and I believe Tony told me that it was used like ginger ale, but other than, you didn't swallow it, it was actually put into the body. Okay, Tony told you that? I believe so. How was it put into the body, Mr. Prater? Far as I know, it was inserted. I don't remember if they said it was anally or vaginally, but it was inserted into the body. Now, who was that? Once again, it would have been Kim and Tony, as my remembrance is right now. This is talking about the actual insertion. It's Kim and Tony. Then there's Mr. Ruger, the inmate. He's asked, tell me what you talked to Mark about. Just asking, what went on, how did it happen, and what did he say? He was sitting there telling them how they shocked them, that's referring to the taser, how they'd used a ginger root, and how they'd done other things. Who told you that? Mark. Tell me about the ginger root. What did he tell you about the ginger root? They'd shove it up her vagina and her butt. Who is they? All of them. And all of them. Kim, Candace, EJ, Mark, and Roy. Okay, so let's get back to Mark. Okay, you said that one of the things he told you was about the ginger root. Okay, so tell me exactly, or what you remember that Mark told you about the ginger root and Mary. Mark told me that the ginger root was used as punishment. Okay, and it was shoved up her vagina. Okay, vagina and butt. Okay, and then EJ would confirm that? Or no, he said, and then EJ would confirm that. Okay, so that's two people saying the same thing. I agree. And then he goes on to editorialize about it being torture. David Tang, another inmate. Okay, so what kinds of things did he tell you that happened to Mary? Oh, they did all kinds of things to her. They did? From roots up the butt, ginger roots. Did he tell you that? Yeah. Tell me what he said about that. He said that Mark told Candace and Kim to stick ginger root up her butt. Was there a reason they were doing that? For Mark wanted to see it. He told about the sexual assaults, but sexual assaults on who? The little girl. By who? Mark. Mark? Yeah, when they shoved the ginger root thing up her butt. Because even the inmate recognizes, and they act like there's nothing sexual here. Inserting a foreign object into the child's anus or vagina is sexual assault. Speaker wire. Roy Prater. The only thing that I can say for sure that I witnessed was I walked into I was in the bedroom, and I walked into the kitchen, and Tony had Mary, the kitchen, and it's a little choppy, the kitchen, and then there was the little hallway that led to Tony's bedroom, Candace's bedroom, and the bathroom. Mary was in that hallway facing Candace's door, and Tony was standing next to, like, the furnace, and he was hitting her with a speaker wire. Where was he hitting her? He was being very specific and trying to hit her on the butt. James, the younger brother. Now, I think it was, again, mischaracterized that the only thing of note he said was that he saw Mark Wright digging the hole that they put Mary in. Actually, James also confirms Mark beating this child with a cord. So question to James. You've got to get whacked. So Daddy liked to whack with the paddle. Uncle Tony liked to whack with James. So those TV cords Well, he had one, and it was an old TV cord. And does that work? Yeah, it was a little flimsy kind of cord, and it whacked her real good. Did it whack her really good? Yeah. And you said that was who? Who would whack her? James said, Uncle Tony, my friend, Uncle Tony. What would Mary do when he whacked her? James said, cry. Investigator Ron, cry. James, try to wiggle out. I'm like, okay, we need more duct tape. And again, that's another thread you're going to want to hold on to, the duct tape, because that comes up again later. Carl Ruger, again, an inmate, speaker wire. He said it was, he gave me a picture. This was Mark, right? Mr. Ruger, yes ma'am, yes sir. He gave me like a visual picture. And when you walked in, the speaker wire was laying right beside the bed. He's trying to give them directions on how to find the speaker wire. Whose bed? Well, Mark said that, Mark's bed. And what's significant about the speaker wire? They beat the crap out of that little girl with it. And then the defense alluded to DNA testing of the speaker wire that we found. And of course, Mary Crocker's DNA, 1 in 12 trillion probability. And then Mark Wright's even higher, 8.2 septillion. So it's hard to imagine an innocent explanation for why both of them would be on the speaker wire that is also alleged to have beat her across her rear end. Then there's the stuff with JR. And again, they like the good stuff in Candace's interview. They don't like this stuff. So Candace says, I was like, okay. And my brother said, what did he say? This is the incident where he beat JR with his fist. When EJ's hand was broken and he couldn't discipline. And I told him exactly what he said, referring to EJ. And my brother said, okay, that's all I needed to know. And he told JR to go ahead and take his first shot. He said, you want, I remember him saying, you want to be a bully and tease the other kids around and push them around? Bully me. Come hit me. He's like, but you better make your shot a good one. Again, bear in mind, we're talking about an adult man who is having this interaction with a child. JR went to hit him and he said, is that all you got? Again, the child's blow had no effect on him. I'm going to give you another chance to try, because once I go to swinging, I'm not going to stop. And I know this is Candace talking, and I know when he says that, he means it. And I was already trying to go over there and break it up. And my mom tells me to stay back and move away. Stay out of it. Let him do what he needs to do. Okay. Because I already know how my mama trained my brother. I did not want to see him sit there and beat the living daylights out of JR. So did JR take another swing at him? He took another swing. And then what happened? Then my brother released him and started beating the ever-living daylights out of him. And my brother's not going to stop until my mom says stop. So what did he use to beat him? His hand, his fists, okay? And if you'll remember earlier today, Mr. Carter came back up and he was testifying about when DFACS came and there was a mark on the boy's face. Candace says, but he did leave his ring on. He didn't. He said he forgot to take his ring off. Okay. He said he didn't mean to leave the ring on, but yes, it left the impression of the ring on his face. So you can picture closed fist. Did he hit him just one time? Oh, no, ma'am. He didn't hit him just the one time. Well, tell me, what did he do? He hit him across the face. He hit him in the stomach. He was like pretty much all over. They go on to talk about, I didn't include this in here, how they had to cover up the bruises, couldn't take him school shopping because they were concerned somebody would see it. I go on and I tell EJ and my mom about it, but the other punishment was where my brother would have JR have his hands held up high like this for a period of time to make his arms tire out. Okay? And he wasn't allowed to put them down until he said so. But then it got to where they separated his arms like kind of crucifixion ties. Like you have a rope here coming this way and a rope coming from this way tied to JR's hands. And I can't remember I think his feet too, but I know definitely his hands. Who did that? My brother did it because my mom told him to tie JR up outside. Again, got to protect Tony. Yeah, he did it, but mom made him do it. So told him to tie JR up outside in the garage. Okay. And so Tony, your brother, would tie JR up. Yes. Well, was he tied to something, or what do you mean? Yeah, one corner of the garage, of the door, the wall, there's a rope over there coming down this way. And then he tied a rope over this way. And then he tied one end to JR's wrist and the other one to the other wrist to where his arms were separated. That's why I said crucifixion, where his arms were out. And how long do you think he was left like that? Hours. And not only she would make him do that, and again, he's no agency here, Mom was making him do it. And not only would she make him do that, then he also had to go whip him. Who would whip him? My brother. The investigator said, well, what? She says, a whip. Like an actual whip? Yes, sir. Okay, what about when you said Tony would whip him in the garage when he was hanging up? Did the back become injured from the whippings? She nods. And what did that? Did he bleed? Tell me more about that. There was no blood. There was more of whelps and bruises where you see where there's almost look like slashes. But there was no broken skin because I didn't see a whole bunch of blood or anything. I didn't scope him completely out or anything, but all I pretty much saw was what looked like slashes to me where the whip is hidden. And whelps? Yeah, whelps. Now there was a lot of mention of Mary in a dog kennel. There was also mention of JR. My understanding is that those were actually two separate cages. JR was initially in a wire cage, a larger wire cage, and that was at the other residence, I believe. And they would put him in it's kind of hard to describe. It's like a little area where they keep the water heater, and he would try to break out and burrow through the drywall to escape. Mary was kept in the small cage, the small kennel, the plastic kennel that you have already seen. That's it right here in the kitchen. I like this photo because it gives you a bit of scale. This isn't like a golden retriever's dog crate. This is at best a medium-sized dog. You'll also notice the plastic ties on there. That was to keep her from breaking out because that had apparently also been a problem for her. This was her life for 24 hours a day. This is her in that same spot. This is when Mr. Breeden said that she was in his direct line of sight. This is directly in the line of sight from his bedroom. If he's laying on his bed, this is what he's looking at. This is about a week before her death. She can't stand, or she can barely stand. She was kept in the kennel for up to 24 hours at a time. As the defense mentioned, Roy Prater described actually picking her up in the crate, putting her in the shower, and then like spraying her down inside the kennel, which I can only imagine how horrifying that would be. She was often placed in the kennel naked, and she would urinate and defecate inside the kennel. And again, to these 5, the fact that she was locked in there and couldn't go anywhere didn't mean anything. She got in trouble for using the bathroom inside the kennel. They would complain about it. Everything was her fault, even the stuff that was out of her control. And as I said, this right here is in direct line of sight to his bedroom. He knew she was in there. Candace to Kim. Are you able to hear Mary's crying your way? She's apparently upset in the crate, and they can hear her throughout the house. Candace, I have asked her to quiet down. She peed herself. I'm going to let her daddy handle it when he gets here. Kim to Candace. Let you know, EJ was up when I got back to the room, so I went ahead and told him he is pissed. He said if it wasn't for the fact that Tony was asleep and works tomorrow, that he would have beat her, I'm assuming she needs to say ass, right away. Candace to Kim. Mom, are you still up? Kim, yes, why? Candace to Kim. Can you come here, please? Why? Because we have someone trying to escape. How? If you come see, you can see how. Did you or Roy come into the kitchen earlier? What do you want me to do? Kim to Candace. Tony would like EJ to shut Mary up. She's locked in the kennel. She's crying for her daddy, and Tony doesn't want to hear it. EJ to Candace. And again, I point back to that picture where everybody's overweight except Mary. I want something sweet. Mary is demanding water. Roy Prater was asked about the dog kennel. Well, didn't he know she was in the kennel? I believe he did. I don't see how he couldn't have, going in and out of the house. Did he ever take her out of the kennel or put her in the kennel? I'm not aware of him doing either one over there. Did you ever hear him talk about Mary or complain about Mary? Probably complain. I know I probably did. I'm assuming that did you ever hear Tony? I'm sure he did, because a couple of times we went in there, you could walk by her and you could smell the smell of, her having gone to the bathroom. In the kennel? Yes. This is Candace talking about the routine. If Mary's schoolwork was done, then she was still in the kennel. If it wasn't done, then I pulled her back out until we got the schoolwork done. By the time 6 o'clock hit, she had to be back in that kennel. She was already to be bathed, fed, and ready for bed in the kennel. Who knew that she was in the kennel? Everybody knew. Did Roy know? Yes. Did Kim know? Yes. Did Tony know? Yes. Of course he knew. So what was Mary doing when Tony was home? What was going on? She would be in the kennel all day. And if you notice the sheet, the one that I pointed out to the court earlier, that was on top of the kennel, that was to cover her from being able to be seen. That was to where that actually comes down to cover all the holes. Is that because who didn't want to see her? Tony. But also my mom just didn't want, like I say, if somebody like company came in or something, she didn't want nobody to see her. And at some point she was going to the bathroom and stuff in the kennel, right? And then she nods. When Roy kept her, I don't know. It was all three of them together, meaning EJ, Tony, and Roy. She was in the kennel. She was or she wasn't? She was. Okay. When you say all three of them, you mean EJ, Tony, and Roy. So when the men had her, she was to stay in the kennel. Because I may go over this message with you, and you saw this message a few minutes ago. But there's a message where it appears that Tony is complaining about Mary crying in the kennel. He wants y'all to get her to shut up, basically. She nods. So when I say Mary commonly, what I meant by that is, was there a time when maybe she was in the kennel and everybody wanted her to be quiet because she was crying? Candace says yes. And did she do that often? Yes. Okay. Because it was more her hollering for her daddy. Mary eventually became too weak to walk independently. As I said, this set of pictures here is from, I want to say October 22nd, so about a week before she ultimately succumbed. And again, Kim to Candace, she has made herself incapable of lifting legs high, as if she was putting herself in that dog kennel, as if she was starving herself. She's made herself weak. Text messages between EJ and Kim. Again, this is shortly before she passed away. Tell her she better get that. Sends him this picture. That again, it's hard to believe this is a teenager. I mean, this looks like a child, like a child. I told her, this is what she did. She says she doesn't want to and isn't going to. She says she isn't going to do anything until you get here. So again, they paint her on death's doorstep a week before she dies as if she's somehow being defiant. EJ, okay, this has to stop. She needs to stop her. Kim, snot and drool. She's letting just drip to the floor. She keeps picking her knee and her feet. Roy has even told her to get up. She refuses. I'm still waiting on Candace. And if you notice at the bottom there, October 22nd. So yeah, this is roughly a week. It's kind of stunning. I mean, they text these pictures with like no shame, like it's just normal. 10/22/2018. This is her, looks like attempting to stand up as they've told her to do. But obviously she can't get all the way upright. I told her this is what she did. She says she doesn't want anything and isn't going to. To them, she's being defiant. To normal people, she's starving to death. They did ultimately address her inability to stand by duct taping her to a pool ladder. And again, like with a lot of stuff, you know, they make these comments, you know, Candace will say something about a sheet, and then you'll see it, you know, in a picture sitting on top of the dog kennel. You know, they make a comment about the duct tape, and then sure enough, you find the pool ladder and you find duct tape on it. And then this was just a picture from, I guess, before she got too bad, when they had her cleaning the pool, and the pool ladder just out there with her. Now, there was some talk about the sexual stuff. Mr. Sincox mentioned that it's, you know, a lot of it's jailhouse talk. So I didn't go into a lot of that in here, but I did think this was worth pointing out to the court. It's an exchange that Mark had with, I guess, a woman, you never know, on Craigslist. And that person says, taboo goes all the way to a slight rape fetish and lightly incest in some cases, depending. To wit, Mark responds, rape is a nice fantasy. Thought about incest myself, incest many times myself. And if we could just think for a minute back to all this talk about going to church, reading the scripture, and I don't, at least in my Bible study when I was a kid, I don't remember learning anything about this. So the woman, or whoever she is, asks, with anyone you know or just in general? And then goes on to, oh, the incest part? My niece. Only one of these 5 people could call Mary their niece. And again, she only lived to be 13. So she is at best a teenager, early teenager, when these messages are sent. These are our 5 murders. Mr. Sincox talked about, I guess my characterizing it as generosity to make this offer. I suggested that I had ulterior motives, concerns about the case. I think based on what you've seen, just this sampling, it's pretty clear we were prepared to go forward. But I did take into account that he was the one that notified law enforcement and got kicked this whole thing off. But Roy, Kim, and Candace get life. EJ, we are going to try, we are going to convict, and we are going to execute. 80 years to a parolable offense is a gift, whether he realizes it or not. Because these 2 don't get 80 years. They were thrown away like trash in a garbage bag. I couldn't find any normal pictures of JR, but I did find 2 of Mary looking somewhat normal. I can't imagine what she's experiencing, before this, but at least in a moment, she looks like a normal child. And then this one, ironically, I got off of Elwyn's phone. It's her eating a meal. They turned her into this. And this. And this. And this. At his house. And this. I wanted to address something that was brought up in the defense's argument about Tony not being involved. On October 27th, 2018, this is within a day or 2 of Mary dying, EJ sends a message to Kim. She needs to listen, point blank. Kim says to EJ, she refuses. EJ to Kim, I said she needs to get up and listen. Kim to EJ. And this is, just by the way, these are the last photographs ever taken of her alive. These are the ones I see, frankly, of all the horrible stuff in this file. This is hours before she would die. Wearing that orange sheet that I pointed out to you at the beginning, that she was dug up in. So this is what she looks like and this is the conversation they're having, as is Mark Anthony Wright. She has been told to quit sitting on her feet, to sit up and exercise by me, Tony, and Roy. She refuses. So Tony can see her in this state. He is talking to her in this state, and he is berating her for not getting up and moving around. That is not just passively, I didn't know what was going on. I was an innocent person. My mommy hit me too hard. I don't register this stuff. He was an active participant. And this isn't some statement from somebody, after the fact. This isn't some interview. This is them in the moment texting each other. There is no reason Kim would include Tony's name in this unless he was actually involved. So that's a lie. Their whole defense is a lie. He was involved. He killed this little girl. Him and his 4 roommates. EJ threatens to spank her, of course, when he gets home. And then Kim, she's disrespectful to us. It's hard for me to imagine that she can even speak at this point, but apparently she's disrespectful. Tell her she better straighten her up now. Let her know I am very pissed off at her, and she will not like what will happen if she doesn't start doing what is asked of her. Tell her I said to get up now. Again, look at the date, October 27th, 2018. She died, best we can tell, October 28th, 2018, at latest, 10/29. Look at that face. Sitting next to her kennel. And then you notice the Subway napkins there, because everybody else gets to eat real food. She has to scrounge, steal sugar from him, and eat Mentos. This is where she ended up. That's Mary's garbage bag that she was thrown away in. The fetal position. That's the same pajamas from that picture you saw. That's that orange, whatever it is. It's kind of hard to tell, but if you look at the pajamas, she just basically went from that picture on the right to a garbage bag in their backyard. EJ, as I said, I couldn't find any other pictures of him. It's like they erased him from the face of the earth. But this is how he ended up. In a garbage bag, like a piece of trash. Also huddled up. Your Honor, I don't know how anybody can look at this case, look at Mr. Wright's involvement, and think 80 years is anything but a gift. He deserves more, and the fact that he let us know does not absolve him of his participation, of his torture, and of his abuse.
Mr. Wright.
Yes, sir.
I've heard a lot over the last 2 days in your hearing. I've heard a lot about what other people have done. But I want you to know that I'm not considering any of that. I'm considering only what you participated in. Before we go any further, I want to admonish everyone here, we're not going to have emotional outbursts. If I have any emotional outbursts whatsoever, you will immediately be removed from this courtroom. I've been a lawyer and a judge for 25 years. I was a criminal defense attorney for the entire 24 years that I was in private practice. I personally represented 2 individuals in death penalty cases. No case, nothing I was ever involved in comes close to the depravity seen in this case. Not even close. The picture painted by the witnesses that testified for you, who were around you more than anybody else. These are people that were your family, and these were people that were your surrogate family. They knew you best. What they told me about you was in direct conflict to what Dr. Garbarino told us. Couldn't have been more different. Your aunt referred to you as a protector. And I know, and everybody who's been here knows, that you are capable of protecting people because we heard about that. You protected people you were in jail with. But I know that you made a conscious decision not to protect your niece and nephew. You did not protect Mary Crocker. In fact, you did the opposite. You participated in the torture and resulting death of Mary Crocker. If these children, particularly Mary, could speak from the grave, I imagine what they would say is, Uncle Tony, why did you not protect us? Why did you do this to us? But you did not protect, and you did do those things. The sentence of the court is as follows. Count 1, murder in the second degree, 30 years to serve. Count 2, felony murder was null pros. Count 3, aggravated sexual battery was null pros. Count 4, cruelty to children in the first degree, 20 years to serve, consecutive to count 1. Count 5 merges into count 1, therefore there will be no sentence on count 5. Count 6, concealing the death of another, 10 years to serve, consecutive. Count 7, concealing the death of another, 10 years to serve, consecutive. Count 8, false imprisonment, 10 years to serve, consecutive. Total sentence, 80 years to serve. Now, Mr. Wright, to advise you of your habeas rights, if you contend that your constitutional rights were violated during the prosecution of this case, you have the right to file a petition for writ of habeas corpus. You must do so within 4 years of today's date on any felony offense. You also have the right to appeal from this guilty plea, and to do so, you must file a written notice of appeal with the clerk of court of this county within 30 days of the date the sentence becomes final. The sentence becomes final when I sign it, and it is filed with the clerk. Anything else from the state?
No, Your Honor.
From the defense? That's the sentence of the court. This court is in recess.
Okay, guys, that's it for Mark Wright. He's one of the uncles that's mistreated his nephew and his niece and starved them to death. and then buried them in the backyard. Mark Wright. And they gave him 80 years to serve. He needed the death penalty, but I guess we have to take the 80 years. How in the world could you do a human being like that? They tortured that girl, didn't feed that child. And like the prosecutor said, they sexually abused her too because they were putting object in her vagina and her anus. And I cannot understand why the father didn't do anything. There were 5 grown-ups in that house and they all tortured them 2 kids. So they all should be put down. So guys, I'm not going to stay on here long. Please leave me a comment and we can chat later because I need to get off here and get myself together. Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for watching. And please, guys, take care of our babies because it's getting worse and worse every day. I just don't understand how can someone be related to someone and just sit there and just torture them. And then he go online and talk to another female about sex. And you torturing your own niece and your nephew. That's what I say, guys. This is Satan and his demons. But we haven't seen nothing yet, guys. Nothing. I'm telling you. We haven't seen nothing yet. So, guys, please have self-control, adapt discipline, and use common sense. Until next time, I'm just going to say peace out. Have a great night.